So how are you going to move the needle in the next 10 years then?
Ah, well, I
What is the
suppose
secret sauce going to be?
the secret sauce, I think, will be to continue holding on to the joy of failure. I know it's
Uh-huh.
an odd, I know it's a perverse way of putting it, but I spoke to 800 17-year-olds the other day about entrepreneurship, but really it was about inventiveness. And I was saying to them, this is a love letter to the productivity of failure. Because any inventor, when you're genuinely trying to do something new and pioneering, it never comes out right first time, whatever these stories, the simplified stories say. And so, if we're really going to kind of keep inventing and reinventing and pushing the industry and moving the needle, we do need to be incredibly inventive. And to be inventive, we need a BrainJuicer labs to be doing huge numbers of experiments, mad, wild stuff. And as we grow, we'll be able to do more wild, mad stuff. And do you know what? Really interesting things come out of mad, wild stuff. And I kind of hope that we'll be able to do it on a more and more industrial scale and not be satisfied, if you like, with the things we've already invented, but to kind of keep that spirit going because it'll encourage others to follow suit. And then, it'll be an industry that's changing and improving rapidly, and getting a lot more attention.
The, um, you talk about BrainJuicer Labs and the mad, wild things that they're doing. Where does all the inspiration for these mad, wild things come from?
Um, it starts to become almost it becomes attractive to the right people. So Mark Earls, I was about to say, now am I calling Mark Earls, who wrote the brilliant book The Herd, a mad wild person? Yes, I probably am, actually. I think he'd
Yeah.
be happy with that description. But Mark was attracted by the sort of things we did and or do, and so we're now collaborating, and he almost came to us to say, well, I've got, it might be interesting to do some things together. And so the whole notion of me to we research, which we wrote a paper, and presented at SMR this year, which is another, I suppose, like you mentioned, predictive markets, the wisdom of crowds. It's challenging the central dogma of market research, where you must ask me about me. And actually, I'm an unreliable witness to my own motivations, sometimes in little ways, sometimes in big ways. And so why don't we actually sort of ask other people about other people, and that's just one example, but people are starting to come to us with their particular thesis or their particular work. And so we're collaborating more and more. Another person, a fascinating guy, David Basola, of a company called AG8, has been working for several years, including with Ridley Scott, the filmmaker, on applying narrative filters to the internet. The internet is this mass of little snippets of people's lives, is this massive noise, if you like, at that level. But what they're doing, and doing successfully, is extracting stories from this mass of little threads of conversation and turning them into stories. So they've got a user generated sitcom that's been running out there. They're doing something called Purefold, where they're creating brand stories, brand sort of filmic ongoing stories out of the internet. And the thing that we're working with them on is brand personas, where you can basically bring a brand's target audience to life as if it's a real person on Twitter. So this person actually is on Twitter, but this person is actually a robot. They're a synthesis of all of the people that are that fit that profile. But this person actually kind of tweets and blogs, and it's blogging and tweeting comments from people in that profile, but it's a synthesis effectively of that target audience. So brand managers could have their brand personas on their desktop, and they can follow them live, and they can actually live their lives to some extent. That's the sort of project that excites us, and I guess they can come from anywhere, and we just have to be open and generous and willing to spend some money and some time exploring, what's possible.
I think that all sounds, fascinating and exciting, and indeed, as you were saying earlier, sexy. I've heard mention of this idea for BrainJuicer, top 10 in 10, and presumably this means that you're aiming for the big time. Do you think that BrainJuicer can keep up this flurry of innovation and invention and inspiration as it grows bigger?
No, Simon, it means that we're going into the music business. We're going to get a top 10 hit, a top 10 hit in 2010. We've got some great musicians in our technical geeky department. The thought. I mean, I think you know this. I'm on public record, and I'm happy to repeat it, that we're here to compete with WPP and not be bought by them.
Right.
And we mean it. And instead of doing any grand acquisitions, in the way that I guess Sinovate stitched itself together, it's not about becoming large by acquiring, acquisition of brand share. That's not what we're interested in doing. But we believe we can become a top 10 player, a global player, organically. And if we grow, we have been growing at about 40% a year on year on year. And if we continue to grow at that rate, which we believe is possible, we will have arrived in 10 years' time. In fact, slightly lesser growth than 40%. And we will have done it through innovation. We will have done it through what we call our juicy products, the products that challenge the industry and the way things are done. And the industry will have changed the way it does things. I mean, it won't just be BrainJuicer, I'm sure, but hopefully we will, be the largest or one of the largest of the new ways of doing research, the better ways of doing research. And it could well take 10 years, and I think we're fine with that. It's fun. We're enjoying it. It's great fun competing and winning with the likes of WPP. That's very satisfying. And as we start to do that on a larger and larger scale, I think it's it's going to be something that hopefully will attract great people who also enjoy doing what we're doing. And it's going to be a fun ride for 10 years.
There's a paradox here, though, isn't there, John? That on one hand, you really want to shake the industry up so that they start to follow what you're doing and maybe mimic you in some ways. In other ways, you want to be out there leading the charge and competing with the big guys and flat-footing them.
And I think the way to resolve the paradox, and it sounds a bit, kind of... it's too far ahead, thinking too far ahead to do it. But I think the truth is the way to resolve the paradox is as we start to gain momentum within what we define as market research, I think the sort of things that we're doing actually starts to redefine market research. So it's not the $30 billion dollar, slightly dry, dusty, kind of collecting customer opinions. And it's much more of a business intelligence. It's having online communities where people are actually kind of engaged with the brand in a real-time mass co-creation events, as well as giving their opinion. And what's that? Is that market research as it's currently defined? No, I think it's something much, much bigger. And customer satisfaction, if you like, should become customer service. What we'll be doing is providing the means of actually improving the relationship between brands and their customers almost in real time. It's an instantaneous feedback and action, feedback into action, if you like, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think the definition of the industry will be much, much larger, and therefore there'll be other monsters for us to defeat, even once we've become a much larger player in market research.
Well, I'm looking forward on December the 6th, 2019, to talking to you again, probably as Sir John Kearon, or Lord Kearon of BrainJuicer.
Let's go.
as you're recognized as the person who's effected this change, and I wish you immense luck in this mission. I think it's a mission that everybody admires today, and the contempt of the past is rightly consigned to the dustbin. John, thanks very much.
Simon, look, that's really kind of you, and you've been an early supporter and a very valued supporter. It's really enjoyed talking to you about what we can do in the industry, and long may it continue over many glasses of a bit of alcohol along the way. That always helps. Thanks, Simon.
That would work. Thanks, John.